Hey moms, let's break out the rubber pillowcases tonight. Little you're gonna be counting tears, not sheep. Hey everybody, this is Fernando from the Rollback Podcast, and you know what day it is? It is Wednesday, so it's time for Wednesday Rewind. Today I'm gonna be reviewing one of my favorite dark comedies, Bad Words. It's one of my absolute favorites because I very much identify with Jason Bateman's character in this movie because I myself have what some would consider a rough exterior. I've been told I'm quote-unquote mean-spirited, but I do it all in good fun. And I only do it with people I know can take it. Jason Bateman's character, on the other hand, does it with pretty much everybody and kind of gets everybody to hate him, which I could see their point of view, come to think of it. But whatever. This movie is starring and directed by Jason Bateman. This is his directorial debut, and he f***ing kills it, because this movie is off the charts hilarious, especially if you're into dark comedy. I love dark comedy. I like things that make you kind of flinch, and he does that perfectly in this movie. Mostly because he's extremely sarcastic, and you see that in a lot of his movies. Like, you see that in Horrible Bosses especially. You see his sarcasm flare. And in this movie, it just flares all over the place, which I love. I think this movie's great, especially when it comes with the sarcasm. And I find that when I was looking at the reviews for this movie, a lot of people were judging this movie because his character's super mean-spirited off the bat. Like, there's many instances where his character's just not likable whatsoever. He does things to psych out his competitors. Well, first off, let me give you a brief synopsis of the movie. So the movie follows Guy Trilby, a 40-year-old person who never graduated the 8th grade. So he found a loophole to where he's able to compete in spelling bees. And he is planning on making a run to the National Spelling Bee, and no one knows why. He's being followed around by this reporter who came out in Step Brothers. She plays the wife of Derek. She's extremely hilarious in this movie as well. And she's following him around because he has to be supported by a news network, and she's a part of a news network. So she's trying to find out as to why he's doing this, and it's pretty much the gist of the movie. Everyone wants to know why he's doing this. I mean, he's getting hate all over the place for it, and no one knows why. And along the way, he meets this little boy who's also in the spelling bee, and he basically takes that little boy and molds him into a horrible person. Now, when I say horrible person, I mean, he doesn't become a dick or anything, but one thing I've noticed with people like Guy Trilby and myself is that we're very sarcastic, we're very so-called mean-spirited, but it's not so much that we're mean-spirited, is that we just have a different sense of humor, and we gravitate towards people that are going to generate off of that sense of humor, and they're going to accept it for what it is. And so, in turn, when that happens, we find these people, and we kind of pick at them and break them down into little tinier versions of ourselves, to where they take that sarcasm and they also include it in their own lives. It's kind of funny, actually, because I used to do this a lot with coworkers, where I would see the nice ones and we'd end up hitting it off very well, and my sarcasm would hit it off very well, and then next thing you know, my sarcasm would rub off on them and they would start being sarcastic as well. And it's kind of like seeing it and you're just like, oh, my own little Frankenstein monster. And so that's basically the dynamic between Guy Trilby and the little boy Chaitanya. He basically takes this little boy and he basically delves his sarcasm into him, which plays well for the movie. It is hilarious to see this little boy curse, to see him find a prostitute, to see his first pair of boobs, which is hilarious, by the way. And yeah, so there's this whole sequence where he's taking this kid and he's basically showing him the ropes of just being him. He's basically doing everything that you're not supposed to do with a kid, and it works well with the movie. So that's why when I read the reviews about it and I saw that people were hating on it because in the very beginning, Guy Tropey's he's a dick in the very beginning. He is super mean. So you don't really understand as to why. You think everything is mean-spirited. But I feel like when they were reviewing it that way, they were reviewing it, you know what, I'm going to say it, they're reviewing it really soft. It seemed like they were getting their feelings hurt. And that's not the case. I mean, it's a movie. It's playing towards an audience. Comedy is like that. There are certain comedians for certain type of people. If someone wants to see a family show, they're not going to go see a comedian such as Big J. Okerson, Dan Soder, or Bill Burr. They're going to go see a person like Gabriel Iglesias. They're going to see a person like Sebastian Maniscalco, because these comedians are more family friendly. So you know what you're getting. And so when I see the reviewers reviewing this movie badly because the person's mean, because he just comes off as mean-spirited, I'm just like, okay, well then this movie's not for you. And that's always been my biggest gripe towards reviewers when it comes to comedies. Because reviewers don't really know how to review comedies or action movies. They always give them these horrible reviews because they're funny. They're not funny to you, but they're funny to the general audience. So maybe you shouldn't be reviewing this movie. Go review something else. That's why I don't think when you see a comedy and you look at the critical reviews, don't do that. You're just setting yourself for failure. Look at the audience reviews first, because I bet you the audience reviews will be better than that. But yes, back to the movie. Sorry for going off on a little tangent. But yes, I love this movie. This movie was hilarious through and through. The cast of this movie, Jason Bateman as Guy Tropey. Like I said, Jason Bateman, you see him in other things and you see his sarcasm flare out and you see him be hilarious. And it's funny because he was a child actor on a sitcom. I can't remember the sitcom. But, I mean, he wasn't really sarcastic. It wasn't really until Arrested Development when he started doing that show in 2003. And then you see him do other movies like Extract, and then he did Horrible Bosses, which I feel revitalized his comedy career, because I feel like after Horrible Bosses, he started popping up in more comedies. And then he finally got his chance to direct in this movie in 2013, which was amazing because this movie's hilarious from top to bottom. But yes, this cast is amazing. You have Allison Janney as Dr. Bernice Deegan. She's the director of the Spelling Bee. She comes out on the show Mom with Anna Faris. She also came out in I, Tonya. She won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. You have Rohan Chand, who plays the little boy, Chaitanya. You have Catherine Hahn, who plays the reporter who's following him around. And those are pretty much the main ones. And each one plays their role super well. And the duo that you really have to look at first and foremost is Jason Bateman and Catherine Hahn. Because Catherine Hahn and him are together most of the time, and so they really have to play off each other. Catherine Hahn is a reporter. They have a deal going that she can interview him, but it's only, I believe it's like once a day, or maybe once a tournament, she's able to ask him a question for her article. And I think at this point, like, they only have like 5 questions. So she's just really trying to dig in deep. And they also have like a sexual relation as well, which is hilarious because there's plenty of instances where they just play on that, and it's absolutely funny. I really recommend you see this movie. Probably not with your parents, unless you and your parents can laugh at things like this, then go for it. And also, I mean, I don't want to say like people are soft when they watch this movie. I just want you to know that when you go into this movie, this person is being mean, but not for the sake of being mean. This person has a story, and you end up finding out more about this story. So don't really just judge the character right off the bat as to him being mean. But yeah, so the next duo that is pretty much in the movie for the most part, since the very beginning starts off with Guy Tropey and the reporter, is Guy Troby and Chaitanya, who he meets when he's going to the finals of the spelling bee. He meets him on the plane, and he goes off on him on these very snarky remarks. It's absolutely hilarious. They have a little back and forth where Chaitanya turns around in his plane seat and he asks him, "Do you remember your winning word? I'm Chaitanya, remember?" And he's like, "I can't do it again, shawarma." And it's hilarious because I feel like there's a finesse to doing comedy. You have to do it in a way where you can do things that are a little risky, but they come out clean and they don't come out mean. And you see that a lot nowadays when it comes to comedians, because you see comedians being attempted to get canceled for jokes when it just doesn't come off right. It has to come out just right that you're able to really still keep your majority of the audience to where there might be some people that get offended, but for the most part, the majority likes the joke. And so I feel like this movie does that really well, especially when it comes to those risky jokes. And when Guy Troby and Chaitanya have these conversations, it's absolutely hilarious. Like, for example, they're talking after they land, and and Chaitanya keeps pestering him about his favorite word, and he keeps saying, how about just your favorite word? And Guy Troby says, "I'm serious, pal. You don't have one?" "I don't. Nope. Sorry. Mine is subjugate. It sounds so cool, you know. Subjugate. 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 What's yours? How about shut the f*** up?" Well, that's 4 words. A sentence, really. And so, these little back and forths between them is hilarious because, I mean, when I see these little interactions, it does bring me back to my own life because I've had plenty of those friends where they're green. And when I say green, they're very nice. They're very, very nice people. And so when I talk to them, I don't talk to them mean, but I'm very sarcastic and I'm very, you know what, for sake of argument, let's go with mean. And so it's always nice to see them go through that same interaction because I'm like, oh, I go through the same thing. And I feel like a lot of people are generally like that. Or not a lot of people, I want to say a lot of group of friends have that one friend who's very rough around the edges that group of friend really just tolerates because that person means well. They're not really mean. It's just how they come off. And they don't mean it. But I feel like that's the instance between Chaitanya and Guy Troby. And for me, those little interactions are what make this movie great for me. What's even funnier is that the actor that plays Chaitanya, I've never seen him in anything before. I never see him starring in anything. And he's really young in this movie. I want to say he's around 9 or 10. And the only other thing that I found out that he was in Lone Survivor. And he plays the little boy near the end of the film where Mark Wahlberg finds sanctuary in that little village, and that little boy is the one that like finds him and he's really nice to him. But that's pretty much it. There's no acting there. He doesn't really talk much. So this is his first like speaking role on a movie. And for this being his first speaking role, I mean, he kills it because he just plays that nice little boy so well. And there's a instance in the movie where Guy Troby's life is it's the beginning of the end for the movie, where things start to fall apart in the character's life. The reporter finds out as to why he's doing what he's doing. Before I say anything that spoils the movie, there is going to be spoilers throughout this review because this movie came out in 2013. What can I say? I'm sorry, it's more like a review. Regardless if I spoil anything, I really recommend you watch it because nothing I say here will do this movie justice because this movie is absolutely hilarious. Please check it out. But yes, back to the review. So yes, there's a point where Guy Troby's life is kind of falling apart in the movie where the reporter figures out why he's doing what he's doing, and then he's gonna go give the kid a present And this is already past the point where he kind of made friends with the kid, because people like Guy Troby in this movie, people with rough exteriors, we find who will take our sarcasm and accept it and start to embrace it themselves into their own little quirks, and that's who we gravitate towards too. And so you see that between Guy Troby and Chaitanya. And so you could tell Guy Troby finds a soft spot for this kid, because throughout the movie he's the Grinch. He's a horrible person to everybody. The way he talks to the kids in the competition, the way he psychs them out, is absolutely hilarious. And so yeah, he's going to go talk to the kid, and he's going to go give him a present, and that's when he finds out that the kid's dad, who's not seen throughout the movie a lot, he's kind of a dick as well. And I think that's also one of the reasons as to why Guy Troby and Chaitanya kind of meshed together, is because Guy Troby's dad was absent throughout his life, and Chaitanya's dad, while he's there, he's not really there. There's a point where Chaitanya shows Guy Troby his binder filled with words that he uses to like study for the spelling bee, and he calls it Todd. And he says, "I think I've spent more time with Todd than I have with my own parents," which speaks volumes that his dad's probably just not around. He probably just cares if Chaitanya gets good grades and whatnot. So yeah, he finds out that Chaitanya and his dad, they had developed a plan where they befriend Guy and they basically screw him over. And so at this point, Guy and Chaitanya's relationship is done. He's seeing red, and he's basically gonna take it to this kid, and the finals coming up the next day. And at one point he calls his hotel room and he says that he's his father and that he's gonna come pick him up to get ice cream. And at this point we find out that Chaitanya and his dad aren't even in the same hotel. The dad like dropped him off at the hotel where the competitors are staying, and then went to go stay at a fancier hotel. So the kid goes to the lobby to wait for his dad to come pick him up, and when his dad never comes back to his room, and he's just like, something's weird, and he notices his binder's gone. His binder, Todd, that has all his words that he studies. And then in the faint background you see a glowing speck in the window. And so the kid runs to the window, and then you see Jason Bateman as Guy Troby burning his binder and throwing gasoline on the binder. And the kid's just like, "Todd, no!" And Jason Bateman's doing with just a shit-eating grin on his face. And it's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, and so the way Chaitanya gets him back is that he calls the cops and says that he's holding a girl captive. And so the cops end up breaking down his door and tasering him. And that's just one of the many bad things that happens to Guy. I mean, imagine you're a father and your kid's in the spelling bee and you think your kid has a chance, and the next thing you know, here comes this 40-year-old guy who found a loophole and is beating everybody in that spelling bee. So everyone hates Guy in this movie, which explains as to why he's mean, but it doesn't excuse as to why he's mean, because you're a 40-year-old man joining a spelling bee. But yes, so he's mean to everybody because they're mean to him, which it all makes sense. And one of the ways that they get back at him that I didn't mention was that the director who sets up the hotel reservations had put him in a storage closet. No bathroom, nothing. Just a storage closet with soaps, towels, things like that. So he's basically just like, he's basically roughing it, and he's all doing this for the payoff at the end. In 3, 2, 1, here's gonna be the major spoiler of the movie. So the reason as to Guy Troby doing all this, going through all this hate, going through everything, going through death threats, through fighting threats, through assault, is because the creator of the spelling bee, Dr. Bowman, who we see in the movie, is actually his dad. His dad was a traveling encyclopedia salesman, and he met his mom, who was a waitress at the time, and she got pregnant, and she told him, and he took off. So at this point, Guy Trilby, who's very smart, he tested as a genius when he was a kid, he decided, I'm going to make this guy remember my name. So you know as to why he's doing this, and you know as to why he's so pissed about it. But near the end of the movie, you see Guy finally kind of figure out that he pissed off his dad enough, and he likes the kid enough, because he identifies with this kid. He knows what it's like to be this kid. And he finally gets to the point where he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna bow out. And he spells a word wrong to lose the spelling bee. And Chaitanya looks at him, and he starts spelling words wrong. And they both just start spelling words wrong back and forth, because Chaitanya's sorry because he did this to him, and Guy Trilby's like, dude, it's fine, like, just win and get it over with. And so they're having this back and forth while they both are purposely losing, and it gets to the point where Guy ends up spelling a word wrong, and he says, that's how you spell it right, and getting the kid to spell the word right, thus getting him to win. So he used a little reverse psychology to do some good at the end of the movie. And at the end of the movie, he meets up with Dr. Bowman, hands him a letter, and Dr. Bowman's like, there's nothing in that letter that would interest me. And Guy looks at him and he says, well, I mean, in that letter it says that I'm your son, and so on and so forth. And so you see Dr. Bowman on a plane reading the letter, and you hear the words being read, and you're just like, well, I mean, look what you created, man. You created a monster. Not in the sense of like that he's a terrorist or anything. Like, if anything, he's pretty much like the best case scenario of what you created. But you did create a monster. And it's basically showing him like, well, you messed up, man, and this is what happened. And then the movie ends with Chaitanya and Jason Bateman going off in an old police cruiser chasing after kids that were bullying Chaitanya. And the movie ends in a really nice way, because you do see that friendship between the bad friend and the good friend, and it works out all well in the end. And so, yeah, I mean, this was the movie I decided to review. I know I was supposed to review Blade. I'm sorry about that. We had some scheduling conflicts, Eddie. And so we didn't get a chance to review it. But next week we will definitely be reviewing Blade. With or without you, Eddie. With or without you. Bring it on. And so, yes, this movie gets my Fernie Golden Seal of Approval. I really hope you check it out. It is absolutely hilarious. And also, check out everything else at the Rollback Podcast. We have written reviews on our website, therollback.net. And then we also have other reviews with my cohorts, Kemma, Alex, Eddie, and various other guests doing the reviews. Please check them out. I put out my weekly Wednesday Rewind every Wednesday. Ironically enough, I know. So, please check us out. This is The Rollback. I'm Fernie. Cut it.